The Nephilim revealed a divine journey of 40 days, incredible miracles and hidden truths in 4K. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, the earth was filled with violence and strife, and the cries of wickedness rose to the heavens. Humanity had turned from the Creator, choosing to pursue their own dark desires, and their hearts were continually set on evil. Yet amid this corruption, there was a man named Noah, a righteous one who walked in close communion with Yahweh, a solitary light in a world engulfed in shadows. As Noah chiseled the wood, deep furrows carved into the timber, his heart ached with the weight of the task before him. His hands moved tirelessly, crafting an enormous vessel that would bear the dual weight of divine judgment and unforeseen mercy. With each swing of the axe, he glanced upward, his spirit whispering for assurance from the one who had commissioned him. The laughter of the Nephilim echoed nearby, the mighty men born of the union between the sons of God and the daughters of men, mocking his righteous endeavors as they reveled in wickedness. Day by day the people gathered, their eyes full of scorn, their laughter like the sharp crack of thunder. The intensity of their ridicule gnawed at the hearts of Noah's family, making them question their father's vision, transforming belief into uncertainty. Yet every evening Noah gathered his loved ones near, the wood shavings beneath their feet, symbolizing hope amid despair. "Pray with me," he would implore, "for our help comes from the Almighty." Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. As the days wore on and the threat of judgment loomed, unnatural signs began to unfold. Thunders echoed in the clouds, and a biting wind stirred ominously in the air. Noah pondered the troubling visions that came upon him. He saw the oncoming waves, the rising waters that would swallow the wicked whole. Shadows flitted through his mind, lost spirits caught in rebellion, watching him build the ark, a vessel of salvation against the storm of divine wrath. With each passing hour, the world thickened with foreboding. The air trembled with whispers of impending doom. Noah grappled with a profound duality. His calling was both a harbinger of destruction and the promise of renewal. Yet each night under the vast tapestry of stars, he recounted hope, speaking of the covenant that awaited on the other side of the flood. Then came the day, fateful and thunderous. The sky darkened and the earth quaked, and with that tremor rain began to fall, an orchestration of divine command. Each drop resonated like a note in a symphony, heralding the impending transformation. By divine decree, animals flocked to the ark in pairs, guided by an unseen hand toward the sacred refuge. Noah stood at the threshold, heart racing, pondering the question that haunted him. Will this vessel be enough to save my family, to remain steadfast as a beacon of light amid judgment? As the flood waters began to rise, his heart leapt. He saw his faith reflected back at him, and the new chapter of God's plan loomed, poised to unfold with divine wisdom and purpose, hidden in the depths of that turbulent sea. As the rains intensified, a great stillness enveloped the land. The taunts of the wicked were silenced, replaced by a heavy silence that bore the weight of anticipation. Noah, with an earth-shattering resolve, ushered his family into the ark, and the door closed behind them with a weighty thud, sealing their fate and the fate of all they had known. The deluge came upon the earth. It began as a drizzle, a whispering promise in the air, but soon transformed into a torrent that swept through the valleys and crested the hills. The windows of heaven were opened, Genesis 7:11, and the very foundations of the deep burst forth, unleashing the chaotic waters that would cleanse the earth of its corruption. Noah's children and their wives clung to one another, their faith anchored against the turbulence that surrounded them. They watched as the world they knew was swallowed by the mighty deluge, the cries of the lost ringing in their ears like distant echoes of despair. Yet amid the clamor of chaos, there was a divine peace that settled within the heart of Noah. He was reminded of the covenant the Lord had spoken unto him, a promise of survival and renewal beyond this judgment. Days turned into nights, and nights turned into weeks as the rain fell relentlessly, covering the earth and erasing the traces of sin and rebellion. The ark floated upon the waters, cradled by divine will. A vast expanse of flat, unbroken land lay beneath the stormy abyss, transformed and submersed in the baptism of God's fierce love and righteousness. Each morning Noah would rise and pray, lifting up his voice to Yahweh, seeking guidance for the days ahead. In the solitude of the ark, surrounded by the animals and his family, he pored over the words of his heart's lament, cataloguing the sights and sounds of the flood, as though they were sacred revelations. He reflected on the wickedness of mankind, now swept away, and prayed for the merciful restoration of creation. Then one fateful day, the rains began to subside, the distant sound of thunder replaced by the gentle patter of water falling from the trees. The great ark began to roll gently, the waters receding as the earth began to reveal its scars. As time unfolded, the sun peeked through a veil of clouds, and a rustling stirred amongst the animals. The family gazed through the small window of the ark, wondering what new world awaited them, what sights would greet them once they emerged from their arboreal sanctuary. In the stillness, Noah sent out a raven, a creature born of both chaos and covenant, Genesis 8:7. The raven flitted to and fro, resting upon the carcasses that floated upon the water, yet he found no place to land that would speak of life. Next, Noah released a dove, anxious for signs of new beginnings. The dove circled and circled, until at last it returned to him with an olive branch, a flickering promise of hope, life, and rebirth. Noah's heart rejoiced, for that small branch conveyed the whispers of God's fidelity, that though judgment had come, restoration was at hand. In that moment, an echo of divine assurance settled within Noah's soul, for though destruction had unfolded, a new creation was dawning. Does the earth not rejoice at the breaking forth of new life? He pondered. For surely our covenant-keeping God holds the waters in his hands, and his mercies are made new each morning. As Noah prepared to step from the ark, he felt an inexplicable weight of purpose rise within him. The covenant of God would be fulfilled, and from the trials of this flood, a future generation would emerge, one that would determine the destiny of nations. But what awaited them was still veiled in the mystery of the Almighty's plan, and Noah felt the weight of holiness and responsibility pressing upon him. The time had come for the earth to be renewed, but the breadth of God's sovereign providence was yet to be fully revealed. How profound would the journey ahead be, and what challenges lay in store for a world reborn? The air hummed with the promise of revelation, a divine tapestry yet to be woven. And it came to pass, in the 601st year of Noah's life, in the first month, the first day of the month, that the waters were dried up from off the earth. And Noah removed the covering of the ark, and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. Genesis 8:13. The sight filled his heart with gratitude, for the promises of God were becoming manifest. He knew that deliverance was upon them. The earth, through God's hand, revealed its scars, yet there was hope in its healing. As they waited in reverent silence, the wind whispered through the trees that had been preserved, ancient oaks and budding saplings whispering tales of resilience and renewal that only the Creator could impart. Then God spake unto Noah, saying, Go forth from the ark, thou and thy wife and thy sons' wives with thee. Bring forth with thee every living thing that is with thee, of all flesh, both of fowl and of cattle, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, that they may breed abundantly in the earth, and be fruitful, and multiply upon the earth. Genesis 8:16-17. With a heart full of awe, and a spirit ignited with hope, Noah obeyed. He stepped forth into a world washed clean, reborn from the ashes of judgment. The sun shone brightly upon him, a symbol of God's favor and a reminder of his promise. The creatures of the earth emerged with him, their eyes wide with the freshness of a new beginning, and creation brought forth its many sounds, a symphony of life erupting from the stillness. Upon the earth Noah built an altar unto the Lord, took of every clean beast and of every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And the Lord smelled a sweet savour. And the Lord said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground any more for man's sake. For the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth, neither will I again smite any more every living thing as I have done. Genesis 8:20-21. God made a covenant with Noah, declaring, I set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth. Genesis 9:13. The rainbow became a sign of his everlasting mercy and love, a promise that never again would the earth be flooded in such a manner. The colorful arcs painted across the sky, vibrant with hope, echoed the voice of creation singing praises to its creator. Noah, filled with reverent fear and understanding, felt the weight of this covenant. His heart brimmed with zeal, for he comprehended that the fullness of God's plans stretched far beyond themselves. Each promise spoken carried the weight of generations yet to come, the truth of redemption woven into creation itself. As days turned to weeks and the advent of spring surged with vibrancy, Noah's family began to sow seeds in the freshly tilled earth. They postured themselves not only as survivors, but as stewards of the new creation filled with purpose, mirroring the very image of God. Yet in the depths of Noah's heart lay a profound revelation that the trials they faced were but a glimpse of a larger narrative to unfold. Though the promise of renewal was glorious, the lurking shadows of the past whispered harsh memories of rebellion. Would the hearts of men remain steadfast under a new covenant? Amidst beauty and life, the void of sin lay like a dormant seed, ready to sprout, and he could not shake the thoughts of what might still lurk beneath the surface. As Noah pondered these things, the heavens seemed to stir, and he ventured to the threshold of the future. What more would God reveal through this new beginning? For amidst the wonder of creation and divine promises, the tapestry of God's sovereign plan continued to unfurl before their eyes. Thus the question lingered: what truth lay hidden within the hearts of men, waiting to be uncovered in the journey ahead? How would the choices of this new generation shape the fate of mankind? The weight of divine mystery beckoned, and Noah stood on the precipice of a story infinitely deeper than the waters that had receded, looking to heaven for answers yet to come. And it came to pass after the days of the flood, as Noah and his family walked upon the earth, that they began to build anew. The soil was rich, the air fresh with the scent of rebirth, and they turned their hearts to labor. Each morning, as the sun rose in glorious splendor, they took up their plows and sowed seeds, rejoicing under the vast canopy of the heavens that sang with the vibrancy of life. Noah, a man marked by the hand of God, often withdrew to reflect upon the mysteries beneath the surface of creation. He sensed the quiet pulse of the earth, a reminder that although the flood had washed away the wickedness, the seeds of sin remained nestled in the hearts of mankind. What will they become? He pondered. Will the generations yet to come heed the voice of their Creator, or will they abandon the paths of righteousness? On the 27th day of the second month, as the fields began to bloom with life, a dark cloud loomed on the horizon. The air grew heavy, and the winds whispered warnings into Noah's attentive spirit. He sought refuge in prayer, calling upon the Lord, and with fervent petition he laid bare his heart to the Almighty. Show me, O Lord, what lies ahead. Illuminate the shadows that haunt these fresh beginnings. And lo, God answered him, for in the stillness of the evening, while the stars twinkled brightly above, a voice echoed across the firmament, saying, Noah, the covenant I have made is not just for you and your descendants, but for all creation. Yet watch and pray, for the hearts of men will be tested, and their choices may ripple through generations. With this divine assurance, Noah assembled his household, sharing with them the words bestowed upon him. They gathered in prayer and supplication, their voices lifted in unity, beseeching the Lord for wisdom and strength. Beyond the visible horizon, a destiny greater than they could comprehend awaited, filled with both promise and peril. As the months passed, the earth filled with the sounds of life. Children laughed, animals roamed freely, and the rhythms of nature intertwined harmoniously. Yet within the unseen realms, the remnants of the ancient world began to stir. The descendants of the NEPHILIM, those mighty ones of old, watched from the shadows, their very existence woven into the fabric of creation, a stark reminder of the judgment that had befallen the earth. Noah's sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, began to expand their influence in the land, establishing families and communities. They did well in their harvests, ensuring that the faith of their father was passed down to their children. But within the heart of Ham, there flickered a rebellious spark, one that echoed the defiance he had seen in the days of wickedness. Secrets whispered to him in the dark, beckoning him to explore the remnants of the world that had been drowned. One fateful night, while the moon hung low and full, Ham ventured away from the safety of his dwelling. He wandered towards the place where the old spirits seemed to congregate, seeking knowledge of the NEPHILIM. Little did he know, lurking in the shadows were the vestiges of evil, remnants waiting for an opportunity to rise once more. As Noah looked towards the distant mountains, he sensed the tremors of an impending storm, both in the heavens and in the hearts of men. With each seed planted, he prayed for a greater harvest, yet he could not dismiss the foreboding that stirred in his spirit. The covenant would be tested, and the call for righteousness would grow heavier. Thus a new narrative unfolded, one where faith and folly danced upon the threshold. What would spring forth from the choices of this new generation? And as darkness encroached upon the light, how would the inspired promises of God hold firm in the face of human rebellion? The saga of humanity was just beginning. Would Noah find the strength to lead in these uncertain days? The mysteries of God's sovereign plan awaited their revelation, hidden yet yearning to be disclosed. And it came to pass, in the days that followed, that Ham returned under the veil of the night, his heart stirred, yet troubled by what he had encountered. He bore within him not only knowledge of the old ways, but a yearning for power that had long been lost to the flood. He found himself drawn to the whispered legends of the NEPHILIM and the ancient prowess that they had wielded before the judgment of God. In the tranquility of the evening, as the flickering twilight succumbed to shadow, Ham approached his brothers, who were gathered near the warmth of the fire. Shem and Japheth welcomed him with open arms, but in Ham's silence they discerned a change. "What news do you bring?" asked Japheth, eyes gleaming with the light of brotherly concern. Ham hesitated, the weight of his secret heavy upon his tongue. "I have learned of the past," he finally uttered, his voice a low murmur, "of giants who roamed the earth, mighty men who were of great renown. Their strength and wisdom beckon me." Shem, discerning the danger in Ham's interest, spoke with conviction. "Beware, dear brother, for those who seek the knowledge of the ancient may find themselves ensnared by the very darkness that brought them to ruin. Our father's faith is our anchor. Do not cast it aside." Yet Ham, emboldened by his discoveries, retorted, "But what if we could wield that strength, restore what was lost? What if our legacy outshone even that of our father?" Noah, now weary from long toil, sensed the discord that stirred within his household. He approached, his brow furrowed with concern. "What turmoil brews among my sons?" he asked, his voice filled with wisdom. "Is it not the Lord God who has commanded us to be fruitful and to multiply, filling the earth not with divisions of spirit, but with unity of faith?" His words hung heavily in the air, yet Ham's heart began to harden against the warning. "I desire understanding, Father, the legacy of our creation, a power that can heal or empower." Days turned into weeks, and the land thrived under their hands, yet an undercurrent of rebellion seized Ham's heart. He began to seek out the remnants of those who remembered the pre-flood world, piecing together their scattered tales. With each dark revelation, the shadow of the NEPHILIM loomed larger in his mind, tempting him further from the path of righteousness. On the eve of a great festival, where the fruits of their labor would be celebrated, Ham's secrecy began to fracture the trust he had with his brothers. Shem and Japheth discerned the change, seeking counsel in prayer and reflecting upon Noah's teachings. "Let us consult our father," urged Shem. "He walks with God. Surely he will guide us through this darkness." But as the brothers approached their father, a binding sorrow encircled Noah's heart. "I have seen the signs," he spoke with gravity. "A storm is coming, not just in the heavens, but in the hearts of men. The whispers of old threaten to drown the promise of God's covenant." As Noah prayed fervently, a vision appeared in the stillness. Dark figures rising from the earth, a strange conflation of old and new, seeking to re-establish dominion over creation. The bloodline of the mighty had not been entirely eradicated. Remnants persisted, awaiting a vessel to consume. Thus the burdens of Ham's heart began to unfold, like a tapestry of intrigue and strife. What would become of him, who sought knowledge without wisdom? The light of divine guidance was available, yet he hesitated. Yet with each passing day, a question loomed large in the spirit of Noah and all of creation. Would a remnant of faith endure as the veil between good and evil drew thinner? The ever-watchful eyes of the Almighty looked upon their paths, foreseeing a reckoning where the truth would emerge from the shadows, hidden yet waiting to reshape destinies. And unbeknownst to all, the winds of God's sovereign plan began to conspire, setting the stage for a greater revelation, that which would resonate through the ages and unfold the divine tapestry of redemption. And it came to pass, as the moon cast its silver light upon the land, Ham's heart grew restless, for each night that unfolded brought new whispers, beckoning him to delve deeper into the mysteries of the ancients. The festival approached, yet his spirit was not lifted by joy and thanksgiving, but rather by a consuming curiosity, a burning desire to grasp what should remain ungrasped. The night of the festival arrived, and the atmosphere was thick with celebration. The aroma of roasted meats and the sound of jubilant laughter filled the air. But amid the revelry, Ham found no comfort. He withdrew to the shadows, haunted by visions of giants, their spectres dancing at the edges of his consciousness. He could not escape the pull of their legacy. Shem and Japheth, aware of their brother's turmoil, sought him out. "Ham, come and rejoice with us," said Shem, his voice laced with genuine concern. "Our father has led us through the waters, and now we stand on the brink of a new dawn. Let not the temptations of the past ensnare you." Yet Ham, his eyes aflame with a desire unfulfilled, replied, "You know not the strength that I seek. It dwells in the shadows, waiting for one who dares to claim it. What use is a legacy that is weak and muted?" With each word, a chasm formed between the brothers, and the festival began to fade into the backdrop of a brewing conflict within Ham's heart. As he turned away from their pleas, a sudden hush fell over the gathering, as if the very heavens were holding their breath. Noah, sensing the rift deepening, rose amidst the assembly. "Hearken, O sons of mine," for he perceived that the time had come to address the lurking darkness. "The Lord has not forgotten his covenant. He has made a promise to never flood the earth again. Yet the hearts of men may yet drown in evil. We must uphold our trust in him and turn our backs upon the shadows of the past. But Ham, emboldened by his hidden knowledge, stepped forward into the light. Father, what if there is more to this world, more power to wield, more understanding to gain? We are meant to be greater than the flood's despair. Surely you do not believe we should walk blind into the future? A heavy silence ensued, and the fire crackled ominously, as if warning of the strife about to unfold. The eyes of the revelers turned toward Noah, awaiting a response that would either bind them in unity or scatter them with doubt. Noah, with a heart burdened, implored, "Remember the nature of the Almighty. It is His wisdom we are to seek, not the strength born of dark ambition. The echoes of the past can lead to ruin. We must safeguard our covenant with God, lest we be led into the snares set for the foolish." With these words, Ham wrestled internally, torn between the light of his father's faith and the flickering shadows that called to him. The tension was palpable, and as the stars dimmed, a tremor of realization gripped the hearts present. Then, in the midst of their uncertainty, a chilling wind swept through the camp, carrying with it a mournful cry. It echoed the names of the mighty, those who had fallen, yet still whispered from the depths. As if time stood still, Ham felt the duality of the old world beckoning him toward a dangerous path. And so, as the festival wore on, the question lingered, hanging in the air like ripe fruit ready to fall. Would Ham choose the heritage of his father or the seduction of the ancient? How would the fate of men play out in the unfolding tapestry of God's design as promises lingered unforgotten in the shadows? Little did they know that soon the stage would be set not just for strife, but for a revelation that would pierce through the very fabric of time. A divine illumination as God's sovereign plan would begin to reveal itself in ways yet unseen. And it came to pass that as the festival drew toward its end, the heart of Ham was a tempest, raging against the still waters of his father's trust. No sooner had the last echoes of laughter begun to fade than a deep silence fell, thick as the night. It was then that Noah's voice rose like a solemn bell, reaching forth as a beacon of hope and warning. "My sons," Noah declared, raising his hands toward the heavens, "let us remember the days of old, when we walked with the Lord, who delivered us from destruction. Whence comes this desire for power that leads us from his grace? For it is written, the heart is deceitful above all things, and desperately wicked. Who can know it?" Jeremiah 17:9. With his words, the winds of doubt began to swirl about Ham, and an inner battle unfolded. He gazed into the dying coals of the festival fire, where shadows twisted and danced. There, in the flickering light, the faces of the mighty NEPHILIM loomed large in his mind, the sons of God, who had once walked among men, their legend breathing life into his forbidden yearnings. "Father!" Ham exclaimed, his voice trembling with the weight of revelation. "What if those giants of old are not merely shadows, but the keys to unlocking our destiny? To harness their strength is to ensure our preservation. Why must we shun the ancient paths when they could lead us to glory?" Noah's brow furrowed, and a deep sorrow filled his eyes. "Beware, my son, the allure of what is lost. The Nephilim were destroyed not for their power, but for their rebellion against the Almighty." Genesis 6:4. "The path you seek is fraught with peril, and it veers from the covenant the Lord has established." But Ham's heart grew fiercely resolute, drawn ever deeper into the dark murmurs that promised the secrets of the ancients. "Shall we remain bound by fear?" he challenged. "The world lays before us, a vast expanse of mystery waiting to be unraveled. Is it not also written, 'I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me'?" Philippians 4:13. If strength lies within, ought we not to seize it? The gathering stirred uneasily, faces etched with concern as they witnessed the struggle between the light of faith and the dark temptation of power. Shem and Japheth exchanged glances, their hearts heavy with worry for their brother's soul, gripped by the seduction of ancient knowledge. Suddenly, as if summoned from the very depths of the earth, a tremor shook the ground beneath their feet. A voice arose, a low rumble that echoed like thunder through the night air, reverberating through the hearts of all present. "Ye shall not seek the ways of the ancients. My covenant stands firm." The people gasped, and Noah, sensing the gravity of compliance, fell prostrate before God. "O Lord, your mercy is a fortress. Establish our hearts in your truth." Yet Ham, undeterred and emboldened, raised his gaze to the heavens, where stars shone fiercely against the dark canvas of night. What if this moment is a doorway, a passage into the heritage that was lost? I will venture forth beyond the veil, beneath the shadows of the giants. And so, internal conflict threatened to rend the family asunder, as ominous winds whispered of things to come. As the festival's embers faded into the night, a portent loomed, and the air shimmered with foreboding. The very essence of creation held its breath, waiting for Ham to make his choice. And it was here that God's sovereign plan would unfurl, long hidden, waiting for the moment when light would confront darkness. For the tapestry of destiny was yet incomplete, and soon the sacred threads would intertwine in ways neither Ham nor the world could foresee. What lay ahead would not only test the heart of a man, but echo through generations, while the ancient promise remained a glowing ember in the shadows of history. And it came to pass, in the days that followed, that Ham, fueled by the tumult within his soul, made hasty preparations to embark on a journey beyond the safe confines of his father's dwelling. With resolve burning like a flame, he gathered provisions, seeking out ancient relics that whispered of the knowledge he desired. He moved stealthily as a shadow, unseen by his father or brothers, who remained blinded by their faith in the unseen. Shem and Japheth, perceiving the strange stirring of spirits in their brother, sought counsel among the elders, men of wisdom who had witnessed the hand of God in the flood and the refuge he had provided through Noah. "What folly drives Ham to forsake our father's instruction?" Shem questioned, his voice low and fraught with urgency. "He is entangled in the web of ambition," Japheth replied, his eyes clouded with sorrow. "His heart seeks not the heritage of promise, but the legacy of ancient might." "We must act swiftly," Shem implored, "for as it is written, the prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty." Proverbs 22:3. "We cannot allow him to walk this perilous path alone. Let us plead with him." Yet Ham had already set forth upon the darkened roads, drawn by the allure of power and forbidden knowledge. As he travelled, he began to dream of greatness, a kingdom carved from shadows and giants. Visions of NEPHILIM danced before his eyes, their forms both fearsome and magnificent. The air grew heavier as he ventured deeper into the unknown, an ominous stillness enveloping him like a cloak. As the sun dipped below the horizon, he reached the Valley of Ancient Whispers, a hidden vale spoken of only in hushed tones. Here he could feel the weight of history pressing against him, thick as the smoke that coiled at the mouth of a forbidden cave nearby. "Here lies the wisdom of old," Ham murmured to himself, the words tasting of temptation and desire. "Here I shall commune with those whose strength shattered the earth itself." He took a step forward, the breath of the past swirling around him. In that moment, a vision erupted before him. Shadows flickered, and he beheld the NEPHILIM, giants whose imposing figures cast a lengthy shadow over the vale, their eyes aflame with knowledge both terrible and profound. A voice rang out among them, resonating like thunder. "Why dost thou seek us, mortal? The path you tread is an abyss that leads to destruction." Hem trembled, his heart pounding fiercely against the confines of his chest. "I seek strength," he cried, desperation clawing at his voice. "Strength to claim my destiny. Show me the way to power beyond measure." "Power at the cost of obedience. Look not to the past without fear. the giants thundered, their words mingling with the very winds of fate. The Creator has warned you through your father. An oath has been made, and it holds eternal consequence. But Ham, too far enmeshed in his aspirations, felt the fire of rebellion flare within. The path of my forefathers has led to mere survival. I seek to thrive. Yet the answers he desired were laced with caution, and the giants began to fade, their forms dissolving into mist. Beware, Ham, for in haste shall you reap a harvest not of glory, but of ruin, they whispered in unison before vanishing into the darkened veil of night. As fear crept in around Ham's heart, a hum resounded in the air, the solemn echo of his father's prayer, distant yet clear. O Lord, reveal to us your truth, lest we wander into the shadows. And as dawn broke, illuminating his path in soft coral hues, unease enveloped Ham, the weight of choice pressing heavily upon him. What lay ahead was fraught with uncertainty, yet amid the murmur of giants, a singular truth loomed. The heart of man, when drawn from the light, is susceptible to all forms of darkness. Thus, unbeknownst to Ham, the very fabric of destiny continued to weave its intricate design, a divine tapestry awaiting his final, fateful decision. For in choosing the whispers of the past, he might unearth a revelation beyond imagination, one that would reshape the course of his lineage forevermore. And it came to pass that Ham, still wrestling with the words of the fading giants, wandered deeper into the valley of ancient whispers. The ground beneath his feet felt alive, pulsating as if the very essence of the earth was aware of the choice he stood upon. The air thickened, charged with a presence that both beckoned and warned him, making each breath an echo of unseen forces compelling him onward. In the distance, a flicker of luminescence drew his gaze, a glimmer that stood in stark contrast to the enveloping twilight. Compelled by an overwhelming desire, he moved toward it, every step steeped in anticipation. As he approached, the light coalesced, revealing a figure shrouded in divine radiance. The radiance enveloped its form like the sun illuminating a new dawn. "Fear not, son of Noah," the figure spoke, the voice melodic yet powerful, reverberating through the valley like a wind through the trees. "I am sent to guide you, for you stand upon a threshold of decision. The path you contemplate diverges greatly from that of your forefathers." With trembling resolve, Ham replied, "I desire strength, the strength to fulfill my destiny and to rise above the shadows. The strength you seek is not born from that which defies divine ordinance," the figure admonished gently. "True strength lies in submission to the Creator's will, through whom all things are made. Consider, Ham, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge." Proverbs 1:7. "Do not sacrifice your inheritance for the fleeting allure of power." Ham's heart wavered, caught between the seductive whispers of ambition and the commanding presence of divine wisdom. A tumult stirred within him, as he remembered the stories of faith and righteousness passed down through his family line. Yet the allure of might, of an unshackled legacy, clouded his judgment. Is it not written that man is but a breath? His days are like a fleeting shadow. The figure continued with compassion. If you pursue the Nephilim's knowledge, you invite calamity. But turn your heart toward righteousness. Then the blessings of your lineage shall flourish like a tree planted by the waters. Hem stood torn, an inner turmoil bubbling like a pot over an open flame. "Will I be remembered?" he questioned, voice laden with doubt. "Will my name be inscribed in the annals of history, or will I remain a shadow lost to time? The names of those who walk in accordance with God's purpose shall be remembered through the ages," the figure replied steadily. "Hearken unto the Lord. Trust not in the folly of your own understanding. Seek him, and in due time his glory will shine upon you." In a moment of clarity, Ham instinctively turned toward the figure, his newfound awareness illuminating the path toward humility. "What must I do?" he whispered, his spirit conflicted yet yearning for truth. "Return to your father and embrace the legacy of faith molded by generations," the figure commanded, voice resonating with authority. "Within that lineage lies the foundation of true power, a power born of obedience to the covenant. An oath is tethered to your steps, binding both heaven and earth." As the figure began to fade, Ham felt the weight of divinely inspired conviction settle within him. Before its last echo vanished into the ether, he heard, "But know this, Ham, your choice is not merely for you. It shall seal the fate of your bloodline, and the echoes of your heart's decision shall reverberate through ages to come." Upon this ominous proclamation, Ham found himself standing alone, the valley silent once more, as the sun's first rays illuminated his path anew. His heart surged with conflicting intent. The weight of darkness still taunted his ambitions, yet the glow of righteousness beckoned him back toward his father's shelter. And so, with faith forged in struggle, Ham turned, knowing well that the choice before him would herald either restoration or ruin. Thus, as he retraced his steps, the tapestry of destiny danced around him, plans of the Almighty swirling just beyond grasp, a revelation waiting to unfold at the ordained moment of truth. And it came to pass that as Ham returned to his father, the weight of his inner turmoil pressed heavily upon him. The shadows of temptation still flickered in his heart, mingling with the radiance of newfound truth. He walked slowly, pondering the gravity of his decisions and the destiny that awaited him. Noah, seeing his son approach, could sense the turmoil braided within Ham's spirit. "What news do you bring, my son?" Noah asked, his voice imbued with fatherly concern and hope. Ham inhaled deeply, drawing strength from the promise of redemption. "Father, I have journeyed into the valley of whispers, where shadows danced and giants spoke. In the seeking of power, I found not what I desired, but a deeper understanding of my own heart." Noah, sensing the light of repentance dawning within Ham, urged him on. "Speak, my son. What revelations have you gleaned from your sojourn?" "I have learned that strength lies not in the shadows of ancient might, but humbly in the covenant we have with our Creator. Yet, for a time, I have wandered in the depths, enticed by promises that could lead but to ruin. Now, I wish to return to the path that you have laid forth for us." Tears of gratitude welled in Noah's eyes, for he sensed the deepening of Ham's heart. "Praise be to Yahweh, for the Lord has been gracious, and his mercies are new each morning. Come, let us bind our vows in prayer, establishing once more our commitment to the Almighty." The family gathered in unity, hands interlocked, hearts open as Noah prayed fervently, invoking the name of the Lord. "O God of our salvation, restore the hearts of men back to you. May we remain steadfast in your ways, filled with reverence and love." With each word, a transformative power resonated among them, reminding Ham of the covenant they bore. Days turned to weeks as Ham fully embraced his father's legacy of faith. Together, the family tilled the earth, sowing seeds that reflected not only their labor, but also their renewed devotion to the one who had spared them from the flood. With every seed sown, they prayed for a harvest of righteousness, a new generation guided by the light of faith and obedience. Then one day, while under the open sky, an oblivious Ham felt a stirring in his spirit, a call beckoning him to face the shadows of his past. He sought refuge in prayer, pouring out his heart to God, laying bare the remnants of doubt still lurking within. In that sacred stillness, a new resolve washed over him, and he knew he must confront that which had been hidden. "Lord," he whispered, "help me to stand against the whispers that call me toward the darkness. Reveal to me any trace of the NEPHILIM that may linger. Let me not stumble again." In that instant, a sense of calm enveloped him, an assurance that God's strength would guide him through the trials ahead. The air was heavy with promise, waiting to unfold the divine narrative that transcended their lives. Meanwhile, Noah continued to teach his family about faith, righteousness, and the promises of God. He shared stories of the ancient world, recounting the redemption woven through history. The weight of God's covenant settled upon them like a mantle, uniting the family in purpose and mission. As the days passed, the lodge buzzed with laughter. Children played and learned, hearts lifted in praise. Yet the shadows did not relent easily, for as the generations flourished, the remnants of the NEPHILIM were not entirely extinguished. Rumblings of ancient knowledge and seeds of rebellion began to blossom anew among humanity. But Noah remained vigilant, ensuring that the truth of the covenant echoed through the hearts of his sons. He often reminded them, "Your choices shall ripple through eternity. Choose wisely, for each generation will shape the legacy we leave behind." And so it was that the family of Noah thrived, a testimony of divine restoration. As he looked upon his sons, he realized how God used their journey not only as a means of survival, but as a foundation for hope and renewal across the earth. Thus the sacred bow was often seen shimmering overhead, a vivid covenant reminder of God's mercy and a pledge never to destroy the earth by flood again. Through this sign, generations witnessed the interplay of judgment and grace, as the heavens sang praises for the new creation born from the depths of ruin. Noah's heart swelled with joy, for he understood that even amid brokenness, God's promises stood firm. And as the tapestry of life continued to weave dreams and destinies for the children of Ham, Shem, and Japheth, so too did the assurance of covenant love illuminate their journey, a glorious echo through generations awaiting fulfillment. The path ahead remained both treacherous and bright, a duality of faith and choices defining their story. And as each dawn broke anew, they took up their plows with spirits aflame, knowing that in faithfulness and obedience they held the key to unlocking the future, that which transcended time, tethering them eternally to their Creator. Now I invite you, dear friends, to reflect upon this powerful narrative of awakening and redemption found in the life of Noah. Subscribe immediately to our channel so you do not miss the next powerful biblical story. The unfolding of God's sovereign plan awaits. Leave a like now to help spread God's word through the algorithm. The truth of God's covenant needs to touch every heart. Comment your spiritual reflections and how this journey of Noah impacted your faith. Let your voice be heard. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth. Don't wait even one more second to share this powerful testimony. Only those who know the love of Christ understand the weight of such messages. Rejoice in this journey of restoration, and let all the world see the light that shines from lives transformed.